What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. We are coming back to Devy today. We've been doing a lot of Dynasty content, but we're going to come back to Devy. We're talking about Jaden Rashada commits to Arizona State. So we're going to talk about the quarterback, what this means for a new program under Kenny Dillingham, and what he can kind of bring and build there at Arizona State. What does this mean for Rashada? He's had an interesting recruiting period, obviously the Miami, Florida, all that kind of stuff going off the field. And what does this mean for the program as a whole? It's a great get for them, great quarterback. And so we're going to be diving into it after the intro. While the intro is going, hit that like button. All right, let's dive into this thing. Now, Jaden Rashada is a kid that I've really liked. So just talking about him as just a player and what he's been able to do, like he's someone that I coming in, I thought, hey man, this kid is really good. Now he's got some things to work on, but like I was always really excited about him as a prospect. Now, obviously, some things haven't worked out all the way when we're talking about kind of his recruiting, his NIL and all that kind of stuff. But as a prospect, you have to like what you see. So here's kind of what we see from him in terms of like his intangibles, okay, his numbers, what he is, 6'4", 175. So obviously that weight's got to get up a little bit. But when you look at the numbers overall, like he doesn't have bad numbers. He's, 3,000 yards passing his senior year, 32 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. He did have also on the rushing side, which isn't on there, but 68 attempts, 419 yards, and 7 touchdowns. He had his best statistical numbers from a rushing perspective this last year, senior year. So when you're looking at him, he's a very good quarterback. Obviously, the interceptions are up a little bit. You see the completion percentage there, but he has improved. And when you're looking at him overall, like he's done those type of things. He also, when you're looking at overall, like in terms of what he's been able to do as a player, he really has. So what I would do is I went through his tape and I watched from his sophomore, junior, senior year. There's a lot of just little things, nuances about his game that he's gotten a lot better at. Mechanics, those types of things. So you have seen improvement. So the reason why he was really sought after recruits, and we're talking about him, number 6 rated quarterback in the nation this year, and number 4 overall player in California. So, and he played at Pittsburgh, California. When you look at him, like he's improved. Like you love what you've seen from him. This is why he was very sought after. Florida, Miami, those guys, even LSU offered him, Ole Miss. But then obviously there was some recruiting issues going on. Now, we're just going to talk about what he does really well. So I think mobility is one, like getting in and out of the pocket, not necessarily being a dual threat. I think he's functional, right? He's functional, is able to do that, but just he under pressure, kind of moving around, manipulating the pockets, moving up in the pockets on the run. I really like that. I think that he can get through and definitely get to the outside and make throws happen. Like this is the type of thing you're going to need from him. Now, especially going to Arizona State schools, kind of going through a transition year, right? Under Kenny Dillingham, he's going to have to kind of learn how that works, how that program works, what it looks like. Probably a little bit of a banged up offensive line or young offensive line. So those things are going to highlight him well. I think he's going to do well with that because he can overcome those obstacles. Now, I love his throwing motion. So one thing that I really like about him is the mechanics are really good. Like when you're watching him play, and he gets up. I think he's one of the most mechanically sound players in this class in terms of this 2023 kind of recruiting class, but able to kind of get up in the motion, gets out his release quick, effortless throwing motion. Like, and when you're talking about him, getting it through, he finds his reads really well, gets his feet set, knows how to get out of his hand. I think he changes speeds pretty well on the ball, where to go. Like there's a lot of good things. Like you can see why coaches love this kid because the things he doesn't do well are kind of coachable. We'll talk about that. But when he goes through it, he's got all the mechanical stuff that you need. He looks really good as a quarterback. Now, as far as the things that he's got to work on a little bit. So size, not frame wise, like 6'4", but I think he's got to put on some weight. He can't be 175. Like I think, shades of Jaden Daniels out there, Arizona State, former Arizona State quarterback. Like he's got to get the size back on. I think he gets in that weight room. I know he's an early enrollee, so he's going to get out in that weight room. He's already out there right now, down there in Arizona. So he's going to get that size, right? Off-field questions, I think, are the biggest concern because, I don't know what ends up happening or what happened with the Florida and the Miami, the NIL stuff with Florida. Like, hey, wasn't offered the money, didn't get the money. But there's some question marks about his off-field stuff. And I think that's just something to note. Like, I don't blame him for, hey, if they didn't give you the money, man, leave. I get that. But I think that his recruiting was kind of weird. And we've seen this before with players, Zach Evans and some of these other guys that have had some of these recruiting stories of like, why are they, what's wrong? Why are they not doing that? What do we see from that? So, like, I think that's just something to note. I don't think it's crazy, and I don't think it's like a big knock against him, but it's something to see. Like, what happens if he doesn't win the starting job this year? Or maybe like he's in a competition. Like, would he get upset with the transfer portal? Everything like that. I think that's just something to look at. And then they talk about with progressions. You will see that on tape that we're going to watch here in a minute. There are some progressions issues. I think that leads to a lot of his interceptions when you're talking about he kind of has a tendency to go first read only. And sometimes he just tries to, I think sometimes he tries to use his talent to muscle things through and not work through his progressions as dump offs. And I think that's a high school thing. But again, those things are all coachable, right? Like those are the things that you like to see from it. Now, when we're watching the tape, like this is the thing you like about it. First, look at that release. Like, and he gets that ball placement there. Like Jaden does that very well. Like that's some exciting things again. Again, in the pocket, look at his mechanics, gets the ball through. That's an effortless ass throw on the money for a touchdown. Like those are the things that I really liked when I watched this tape. I broke down all these quarterbacks. You know, me and Christian Williams did it on our Patreon almost 2 months ago. We went through everybody's tape, the top 10 guys and some of our other guys. And Jaden really pops off for me as like a guy that has a limitless potential. Like I think he can be very good. Again, sets his base, gets on the outside. And that's kind of his, this is a hell of a throw. So this is like, I wanted to highlight, you know, again, gets off his base. He feels that pressure coming from his right side. Still gets his feet set across his body with the receiver going the other way down the field on the money to the back of the end zone. Like that's exciting, right? Like if you're watching him, you're like, damn, that's some good tape. That's some good stuff there. Again, get to the outside. And that's what he fits the profile for just a legitimate quarterback prospect, getting the ball out quick, getting the release, having it to the sidelines, like putting it where the receiver needs it. Like that was a really good throw where the defense was at. Get it to where the receiver needs it. Now you'll notice this though, like, hey, this is a good throw, touchdown. The one read thing is pretty prevalent in terms of his tape. Like he does do a good job when the pocket breaks down. But look at him just stare down his guy. He knows where he's going, which is fine. Maybe they schemed it and they did that. But that stuff's not going to work at the next level. And I think that's something he's going to have to work on. But he can make these throws. And I think the talent sometimes for him, he's like, hey, I can make this throw every single time. Sometimes that gets him in trouble in terms of interceptable passes. And I think that's the question mark that you have to look at when you talk about Jaden. But again, you'll see him here, step up in the pocket. Like his arm strength is there. Look at him get on this ball. Like that's a perfect freaking ball. Great catch, but that's a perfect ball to the outside numbers. The only guy that can catch it is a receiver. Like these are the things that I highlight, and I love it. I love everything about Jaden's game, and I thought he did very well as a quarterback. I think that he went to a very good spot, which we're going to talk about here in Outlook. And again, he's pretty immobile, agility, right? But he's always the other thing too that I wanted to mention there. He's able to make like these throws here, gets it out of the side, but also like when he's on the run, he doesn't just look the run and tuck it. Like he actually does look the ball down the field, tries to get it to people, right? And he doesn't just run. Like he's not just doing that. And I think that's something to highlight too as we get into his game. Now, when we talk about the outlook, so let's talk about what Arizona State means and where it comes from. So when we're talking about them, obviously they got Drew Pine from Notre Dame transfer. Then they got Jacob Conover from BYU transfer. Trenton Boyer is there still. So he's going to fit in there. Now, I think he's going to compete for the job. I don't know if he's going to win the job as far as the depth chart goes, right? Like, hey, I think Drew Pine's coming in there, going to win, but it's going to be a competition. And then I think maybe you're looking at Jaden, depending on how the season comes out. What is can he win that job later? Will they just give him a look? Like, I think Drew Pine was better than people gave him credit for at Notre Dame. Obviously, he has his deficiencies as a quarterback, and he's not Jaden Rashada. So Jaden, I think, is a better prospect. But, overall, I think they'll be okay. When you're looking at their schedule, Southern Utah should be a win. Then they go to Oklahoma State and Fresno State and USC. Like, those are three pretty tough games, depending on what Oklahoma State's program looks like. Fresno State also kind of doing a rebuild after Jake Hayner left. So it really kind of just depends to me if you could maybe see Rashada maybe after that Washington game or maybe the Utah game. They have a really tough stretch in the Pac-12, though. They go Washington State, Utah, UCLA, Oregon. Like, those are going to be some tough games. But I think they're going to be there. Now, as far as the other part of their depth chart, they're still kind of working this route. Andre Johnson, Elijah Badger. Keeping Badger there was really good. That was a very good get for them. Troy O'Meara from Texas, you transfer there. Cameron Scatterbo from Sacramento State. I actually watched him in person. He's going to be an interesting runner there. DeCarlos Brooks, Tevin White, those guys, like, they got some guys out there. But overall, like, I think Jaden's going to be a guy to watch. I don't know about this year, but next year moving forward, he could be that guy that you're like, hey, they can build this around. Now, I know we've had some questions about this in our Patreon and other stuff. Like, hey, can Rashada be that guy? Like, can Rashada be that guy that leads them to a Pac-12 championship or Pac-10 or whatever the hell Arizona State's going to be in a couple of years? I don't know, but I think that by his junior year, if he wins Kenny Dillingham's system, what they run, he fits pretty well in his offense, his offensive system. If he wins that job, I think Arizona State can hit 8 or 9 wins. And I think that'd be good on the way to like rebuilding this program to what it can be. Because Arizona State's a hotbed, man. If you get a coach like Kenny in there and they start recruiting and doing those things, I think they could really make some noise. So you guys should be excited about having Jaden on your team. And he's moving forward. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. Seriously, hit that like and subscribe button. Check out all the content below, the Patreon. We just did a rookie guide. If you're into fantasy football for football guys, you can check that out in the description. As always, we appreciate you guys. We're on our way to 2,000 subs. So if you haven't subbed yet, hit that sub button because we do content for everybody on this channel, and we love you guys. We appreciate you. So I'll see you guys next week.